Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm the Stretch Professor, and today we're going to be looking at the 916 support tier list. So as always, you can find timestamps in the description if you don't have time to watch the whole video. And you can always press the little cog button on YouTube under sort of viewer display, and you can watch it at 1.25 speed or 1.5 speed if you want to go by a little bit quicker. Also in the description, if you go into this Google Doc as well, which I'll have in there, in addition to the timestamps, you'll find a little mini Google Doc for each one of the top 15 champions. If you click on it, it'll tell you a 1 to 5 rating system for the champion. So 1 being the champion is one of the weakest at that task. 4 supports, 5 being it is one of the best supports at whatever that task is. So we have lane pressure, which is how likely is the champion able to get priority and harass, excuse me, the enemy in the laning phase, to sort of exert their will on the lane. Kill threat is how likely is the champion able to get kills or force kills and assists. How proactive can they be, particularly in the laning phase, which is not the same. There are some champions that poke really well that don't really have a great kill threat. Like Sona is a really good example of that early on. Safety is how safe is the champion, particularly from early ganks. Scaling is how well does the champion perform over time. And then reliability is how likely is it that someone can play consistently on this champion and get wins with a moderate amount of play. So part of that is how difficult is the champion to play, both mechanically and in terms of the decisions you have to make. But part of that is also how many counter picks are there out in the meta. Does it fit in really well with the other types of picks that are floating around right now, both on the enemy team and on allied teams. Then I have recommended runes and recommended items. But keep in mind, as I talk about each champion on the tier list, sometimes you got to go off script a little bit. You know, I might recommend certain runes or certain items, but you might face some really weird situations where you have to get different items. So be sure to think carefully about which items you're building and make sure that it makes sense for the right situation. So for example, it's rare to build something like Locket on Rakan, but if the enemy team has like 3 AoE teamfight champions that are all getting pretty fed, so like if they have a Kennen and a Mumu and like a Rumble or something on their team, then you might want to call an Audible and get a Locket instead of something else. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here. And as always, if you enjoy the content, be sure to like and subscribe. I'm also streaming on YouTube Sunday through Thursday, starting around 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'd love to have you. It's a wonderful community. And then now we're streaming on Twitch Fridays and Saturdays for the weekend. So come out, check that out around 9:30, and then drop a follow. Or if you do have Amazon Prime and you want to drop a Twitch Prime to help support the channel for free, then of course we welcome that as well. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here. So, some has changed. There's a couple of changes. Some has not changed on this tier list. So, Rakan has not changed that much. I still think that he's the best overall pick right now, pretty much at all levels of play. Now, he does get a little bit weaker if you're silver and lower, just because, some people will argue that he's kind of team dependent. You need your team to help you out with stuff. But I would argue that he's less team dependent than a lot of other champions out there. And the main reason is he's so flexible. So you're not really reliant on your AD carry to do well. We'll go ahead and pull him up here. You're not really reliant on your AD carry to do well with him. Because you can just play around somebody else. If your AD carry fails, it's fine. You have lots of engage. You can play around a jungler who's fed. You can play around a mid laner who's fed, a top laner who's fed. Just grab you some mobility boots and just play around whoever's really strong. Unlike certain champions that require certain kinds of conditions to be strong. So, for example, Janna is very good if your AD carry is doing well because her shield gives a lot of extra AD. She's not going to be as good with AP champions because they can't do a lot with the AD, right? So if you have a fed a Zyra middle, dropping a Janna shield on him is not really going to do that much, right? Or like giving some extra attack speed to your assassin, right? If you're Lulu, dropping a W to increase the attack speed of like your Zed or your Talon, not going to do a lot, right? But because Rakan can, pretty much he's the best engage in the game, I think, at least from the support role. He can consistently run around, get nice engages. He does have shield, so he does scale pretty well with AP or plus healing or shielding if you need that. So he has pretty good protection against other engages on your AD carry. So if Zed tries to drop, for example, an ult on your AD carry, you can, go in, shield him, with your E shield, and then you can also use Guardian to provide an additional shield to him. So he has a great blend of both protection and engage, good peel, good ultimate. He's just pretty good all around. One of the only major drawbacks of Rakan is in the laning phase. He's not going to be like that strong at poking. His Q does okay damage, but I really don't like putting a lot of points in Q. I switched off of that. I know some top-end Rakans will get more points in Q, but I think unless you can rely on your AD carry to land a lot of consistent poke, then I just don't think you're going to put up enough by yourself. This is just a very inconsistent skill shot. You'll notice even a lot of top-end players miss this very often because it has a very narrow hitbox and it's deceptively short range. Like, it says 900 range, but it really feels like it's just way shorter than that. And so it's very easy for the enemy to play around that. So his poke is not really that great. His all-in's pretty good early on. You know, if you're maxing W, which is what I'm recommending these days, you know, the all-in's pretty good because you'll go in, you'll hit him with this for 120 with a 0.7, you know, at level 3, or at level 5, it's 170. And then when they're knocked up, you can usually land a point-blank Q and an auto attack, and then you E back to your ally with this. So it's a very safe trade. Even if you miss the W, typically you can still E back out. And so, you know, you can just throw down a quick 250, 300 damage early, drop them down to like a third, like, you know, knock off a third or maybe even a half of their health star, depending on how squishy they are. And then just wait for this to come back up and just rinse and repeat and just do that every time it's off cooldown. Especially if you have your bone plating available or if you have Guardian or both of those. Then that allows you some pretty good trade overall. And so I think it's just really nice that, like, you can go in, but he's not as reliant as someone like Alistar, because you can also get back out with your Battle Dance. And that's what really sets him apart from other all-in champions like, you know, Nautilus, Alistar, even Pyke to an extent. Pyke has the option of not going all in when he lands a hook if he wants to. But you can actually get out. So if the jungler just randomly shows up out of a bush, or if you miss your W, or your AD carry is just like, you know, basically AFK and is not following up on any of your engages, then you can still get back out, you know, no harm, no foul most of the time. He also has really good trading himself, so he gets the Guardian advantage where he gets a nice shield every 40 seconds. And then he also gets this passive shield, which if you're being aggressive, if you're landing your Qs, is up fairly often. And then you also have bone plating that you can play around. And he has the heal off of his Qs. So he has like 4 different cooldowns that give him extra survivability. And don't underestimate this shield. I mean, this is pretty big. You know, if you think about every time you're like landing autos and Qs, it lowers the cooldown on this. So if you're trading on cooldown every time, this is going to be up like every 30 seconds, probably even less than that. And so if you think about, you know, at level 3, getting this twice per minute, that's 37 extra shield, which does scale with plus healing and shielding, and it has a huge AP ratio. So if you take Frostfang, you get extra advantage out of it. But that adds up. I mean, even 30 every 30 seconds is a lot. That's 60 health per minute. So if you think about, you know, the first few minutes while you're in the laning phase before your first back, you get a free extra 180 health. So it looks like he's pretty squishy early on, right? He's got 540 health, which isn't that squishy, but kind of squishy. But really, he's starting off with something closer to 700 health because the shield is going to be up so often. And so that makes him deceptively good in sort of longer, sort of sustained short trades, right? Where you're just trading every time your W's up with a couple of your cooldowns. So once you get used to playing around those cooldowns and just, you know, making some good plays on the enemy, then he actually has really, really good trading in the laning phase. And he's very safe. I mean, that's the thing that's like, you know, the main deal with Rakan and Pyke, who we'll talk about here in a second, is they have good engage, they can all in, but they're also extremely safe. So you see a jungler coming up, no problem. You can just W away, or you can E to your ally. You can even W in, hit the person who's coming in to knock them up, land a Q, and then E back to your ally to just slow them down a little bit and put a heal on your ally. Maybe even put the Guardian speed on your ally if you shield your ally first and then W over. So you can shield your ally, W over, hit the enemy, they hit you. Before you knock them up, then it'll trigger the shield on your ally and on you so that you can both get away and run away faster. So there's all kinds of little tricks that he can do to get away, and his quickness even. If you're caught out and, you know, you have nobody to battle dance to and you W'd over a wall to try to get a good ward in, and, you know, the jungler's right there and he's about to fight you can always just quickness, tag him, and then run away. So he has like 3 different escapes, and really 4 if you include both jumps off of battle dance. So it's just crazy to try to run him down and kill him. He has so much safety, and he scales really well. He has a lot of versatile items he can go for. So he has really nice AP ratios on his passive and on his shield, which is basically a 1.6 ratio on the shield compared to something like Janna, who has a 0.7. because you can shield twice. So you have, like, basically, you know, in the mid game, you're going to have a 280 base shield with a 1.6 ratio, which is pretty crazy. So a lot of people have been trending towards Ardent Censer and Athene's Unholy Grail on him. That does make you pretty squishy, especially if they have a lot of AD. Athene's is pretty good because you get magic resist on it. So it's pretty nice. And that does allow you to get Chalice of Harmony early, which makes all of your mana regen also count as health regen. So that's a very, very good item early on if you're going to get something like Frostfang, because it basically turns your Frostfang into a reju bead. So you get a lot of good gold value off of that item early. But I still think, personally, in a lot of matchups, especially if your AD carry is not a complete turkey, Zeke's is going to be the place to go. It gives you armor, it gives you magic resist, cooldown reduction, mana, which you do need one mana item because you can really run out of mana quickly if you're going for these trades using all three of your abilities. And just the extra damage that you do off of Zeke's, I think it's 15 on-hit damage, is still really good. It's not as good as the 25 that it used to give on-hit damage, 25% on-hit damage, but it's pretty good. And don't underestimate that slow. That really allows you to stick to people. It makes it very difficult for the enemy to run away from you, and you do extra damage while you're close. Sticking close to him. So just the passive on Zeke's, you'll end up doing another like 200 damage a lot of times, in addition to helping your AD carry do, I don't know, another maybe 200 damage, 100 to 200 damage on the trade. So it provides a lot and gives you a lot of the stats that you really want, particularly if they are AD heavy. That 60 armor really helps out a ton. And there's a lot of AD floating around these days between like Kiana, Zed, Talon, Jarvan, Hecarim. You know, it's just, there's so much AD in the meta right now that I still think it's a really good item. Although, if you are a Pyke, if you are against, you know, some magic damage champions out there, then Athene's can be pretty good because you put up decent damage, you know, with just your auto attacks. Gleaming Quill, Frostfang does damage. And then your Battle Dance allows you to apply that healing to different allies. So I've had some mixed results with it. For me, you know, I still like the Zeke's, but Athene's is something that's becoming more popular that you can do. Ardent Censor's obviously very good because you can put the Ardent buff on 2 different people with your Battle Dance, which is really nice. That's going to make you super squishy because it has no health on it and no resist. Athene's at least has some resists on it, although way, way less than Zeke's. But if you have a super fed AD carry, or you have multiple allies on your team that benefit from the Ardent buff, so let's say that you have, like, I don't know, a Master Yi or a Kindred in the jungle, and then you've got a Kai'Sa in the AD carry role, and then, you know, mid lane you have an Azir or something like that who really likes attack speed, you know, maybe you could go for Ardent Censer, but you're going to be real, real squishy if you go for that. So that's also popular. But after Zeke's, I've typically gone for Knight's Vow. That's kind of doubling down on the armor and gives you health and gives you a little bit more protection as well. Having the movement speed to move back towards your knighted ally is a very big deal, though, too. If you put, and that's something that people forget about Knight's Vow. Can pull that up here real quickly. But yeah, that's something that a lot of people really sleep on with Knight's Vow, is they forget that it does give you really good movement speed. I think it's 15% movement speed when you're moving towards an ally. I should just keep this up here. So it gives you the armor, gives you the health. It redirects some damage from your AD carry over to you, which is really handy. Except Gunblade. Nice Vow, okay. Sometimes it takes me a second looking at all those pictures. But yeah, it's a cheap item. It's 2,200. It's pretty cost efficient by itself. When you're near your partner, it's 100%. And then you redirect a bunch of the damage. Now, you only get half value, which some people don't ever get this item on Rakan because it's only half value. But it's still pretty good. It's redirecting 6% of the damage from this dealt to your AD carry usually to you. But then it also gives you a lot of healing. It gives you 6% basically healing for all the damage that they do, which is really nice. But this is the one thing that a lot of people forget about, is you get 15% bonus movement speed when you're running towards your ally. This is clutch, because whenever you go in, a lot of times what happens with Rakan is you R plus W, you go in there to the fight, and then you tag one person, and usually that's pretty easy. But then the temptation is, well, can I get somebody else? So I just got their AD carry on the back line. You know, can I go over and tag their mage also before I get blown up? And sometimes the answer is no. You try to tag too many people and you get obliterated. But if you have this, then that might enable you to go tag that one extra person for the CC, and then when you're running back, you're going to get closer to them faster, 15% faster, so that you can use your shield and jump back out. So it doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but it really is as Rakan, just because of how he trades. Like, he goes in, he CCs people, and then he tries to run back and help peel his AD carry with the shield. So I think it's a really good item. I've had the best result with both of those. But there's a lot of stuff possible. You can also do a Shirelia's. Particularly, I still like starting with Zeke's, but you can do Shirelia's if you want to boost your whole team in. So if you have a bunch of bruisers or something on your team, you know, you've got a Darius top lane, and then you've got, like, I don't know, an Irelia or something mid lane, or an Aatrox. Then having something like a Shirelia's can be very, very good to help your front line, you know, run through their front line and get to the back line. So I think that's another item that could be considered. Sometimes people go Redemption as well. If you have a really strong team fight, you can do that. That's a good combo. If you go with Themes, you're kind of just going all in on the healing there. You're going to be very, very squishy if you go those two items, though, so you need to be careful with that. But it is a good team fight item. In my experience, especially if you're under Diamond, a lot of people tend to run out of Redemption, or a lot of players don't use it properly. Like, they won't lead where someone's running and they'll miss with it. So there's just a lot of things that can go wrong with Redemption, but if you have a really strong team fight team and you know they're going to stick in there and fight for a while, especially if the fight's going to be going on for a while, if they're not going to die before your Redemption hits, then it can be a really good move. I've also gone back towards Frostfang lately. Some people do coin, but Frostfang really does add up quite a bit over time with the damage. Like, it doesn't seem like it's a lot, but it really is. I mean, even the early item Spell Thieves, it does an extra 13 damage per hit. So if you're trading, you know, you're kind of doing that 30-second trade window that I talked about earlier, then you're doing 39 extra damage just off of this item every 30 seconds. That means every minute you're doing 78 extra damage. So 3 minutes in, you know, if you think of like an initial 3 minutes before you get your first back, that's over 200 damage just off of the initial Spell Thieves. When you open it up to Frostfang, that's 54 damage every 30 seconds. So you're doing 104 damage. So every 3 minutes, you're going to do over 300 damage off of just this one item. Keep in mind, most champions early on are going to have, you know, in early levels, somewhere between like maybe 650 and 800 health. So you're doing like 25% of their health. Now, yes, it is magic damage, so it's going to get blocked some by magic resist. But y'all see what I'm saying. Like, it's a lot of damage, right? Like, it's basically like they basically come to lane with 200 less health. So it's a lot. It's a lot of damage over time if you're using it correctly. It's like, yes, you are going to make less money in the long term off of this item, but just that alone, the bonus magic damage is tremendous if you're triggering it often, which you should be able to do. You know, once again, you just W in, hit them, auto attack, Q them, E back out, boom, there's your 3 triggers. You only have to do that once every 30 seconds, right? Even if you're only doing it once a minute, still doing like 100 to 150 extra damage is a lot early on, you know, when it's like 20% of someone's total health bar. It's a big deal. Just think of how often someone runs away. Like, you're going for an all-in trade and you have coin or something and someone runs in with 200 health or less. It's a lot. Spoiler alert, it's a lot. They're going to flash away. Your Ignite's going to be ticking whenever you all in, and they're going to laugh at you and throw up an emote with like 50 health left, right? That happens all the time. So this really makes sure that doesn't happen and that you actually get the kill. So that's really nice. That doesn't even include the ability power. Remember, Rakan has really good ability power ratios, right? So even his passive is 90% ability power. So that's going to give you, you know, 18 extra on your shield early on, which is a big deal because, you know, at level 5, it's only an 85 shield. So throwing 18 extra on that's really big. And that also scales with any plus healing and shielding that you might get in the future. So I think that is just really, really good if you can make it work. So yes, you are going to have a little bit less gold in the late game if the game goes long because it's harder to trigger this over time. But early game, the fact that you get extra ability power, you're doing all of this extra damage, can be a big deal. And if you're trading properly, you're still going to get your wards somewhere between 12 to 15 minutes. That's not as fast as like 10 minutes on coin. But, you know, just the extra ability to trade is huge. And also the 50% base mana regen is usually much more mana than coin, like the blue coins. Unless you're just constantly at 0 mana, then that can be a problem. Hold on, let me just mute this real quick. This might be an emergency. Okay, sorry about that. She's asking about this washer that we sold earlier. Anyways, I thought it might be, she might need me to pick up. It's my wife, like daughter from daycare or something. If she was like, if there's an accident or something on the highway. Anyways, whatever. Sorry about that. So, anyways, I think this is the best thing to go right now if you're being aggressive, and you should be aggressive with Rakan. Okay, so next up, sort of runes and what I'm recommending lately. So this is pretty standard Guardian. Now, I really like, I've kind of switched my rune choices over the last week or so, and I've got a really big win rate on Rakan lately too. I've pretty much been one-tricking Rakan for the last 2 weeks, and I've gained 3 divisions with like a 65% win rate when I just had been in the dumps the whole time. For the last couple of weeks. So we're kind of getting back in our zone. We're almost back to diamonds. We had been at diamond for like 2 months. And then we just had an ELO apocalypse in kind of mid-July. And we're just kind of recovering from that now over the last couple of weeks. So it happens. But this has been a big contributor is I switched up my runes. I switched up my items and kind of my mentality about Rakan. And we've been picking up a lot of wins. So one thing that I changed is I go for Demolish now. I have tried out Shield Bash. The numbers are just too low. It just doesn't matter that much. Fonts of Life, if you're going Ardent Sensor, might make a little bit of sense. But I still think the numbers are too low. It just kind of sucks. I really like Demolish. If you are being very aggressive and you're running them out of lane, if they're taking really bad trades, if you're forcing the action and they're scared and they run out of lane, every time you make them take a bad back, you basically get 1 free plate early on. Which is going to be a lot of gold, right? That's like 160 gold. So that pays for itself really quickly. Even if you only take 2 plates, that's 320 gold value. I think I'm not going to look it up. I think that's how much a plate is 160. I could be a little bit off on that, but it's a lot of gold. So, if you think about it, if you just get 2 plates with this throughout the entire game, it's worth. 320 are like some of the most valuable secondary runes you can get. Are going to be 320. There are some that can be much more like as the game goes on, but 320 is a really good value. In addition to actually doing damage to the tower, it's not just gold. It actually hurts the tower, so you take the tower faster, which helps your tempo. If you take that first tower, that's going to allow you to roam and take more plates, take more towers, take dragons, get deep wards in enemy jungle. It's huge, obviously. So it's just really, really good, especially if you're forcing a lot of action. And the fact that Rakan can roam and make a lot of really good plays with Moby Boots means that you could run the mid laner out of lane, for example, or even kill them, and then you can help the mid laner push the wave in and get a free plate with Demolish. So it's just really good in almost all situations if you're creating a lot of pressure on the map, and I think that's what you should be doing as Rakan. So I think this matches that playstyle. Now this one is something I've switched on too. So conditioning is a really good value past 10 minutes. 9 armor, 9 magic resist, not even including everything else on the list, is still going to be, like 300 to 350 gold value. And then your total armor and total magic resist, not bonus, but total, you get 5% extra there. So you can usually get like 500 or 600 gold value on this easy by 10 minutes. But the thing is, like, your mid game's already really strong as Rakan. Like, you're not worried about 10 minutes. You're worried about 2 minutes as Rakan. You're worried about, can I survive this laning phase, or can I even put enough pressure up to gain advantages in the laning phase? Because Rakan's great in the mid to late game. It's just he has that weak early game. So I really like bone plating for this. It just gives you a really nice, clear trade window there. Every time it's up every 45 seconds, you can feel confident you're going to make a very, very good trade. Because even at kind of early levels, even just 30 or 40 damage blocked, if that's 3 times, that effectively gives you 120 extra health every time you trade every minute. It's kind of like what we just talked about a second ago with his shield. It adds up. If you add up bone plating, how much damage that prevents, how much you get off of Rakan's shield, how much you get off of Guardian, how much you heal off of like your Q, it's just all of this crap stacks up to just make him into like one of the tankiest things for sustained trades over the course of several minutes, right? Because he uses all of these so well, he can force a fight, with his W very comfortably. And he can even take risky engages sometimes because he can get back out. So even if the jungler might be there, you can still go in with your W. Or even if you're afraid they might outplay or dodge your engage, no problem, just E back out. But you can take so many more risks because you have that E to get back out. So I think he's great at forcing action. And then finally, I had been a big fan of Revitalize. It does synergize really well with his E, which does give you like pretty sweet shields later on, especially if you're going to go Redemption. This is good. And maybe you can still take Revitalize if you're going for like Athene's Unholy Grail plus Redemption build. You're going to be squishier, but with Revitalize, you're going to put up some really big numbers on those shields with your E. So that can be good. But I really think that Unflinching is something that I had really slept on a lot before that is actually quite good, because you're using your summoners pretty much on cooldown. Every time you have Ignite, you should be trying to force a play and kill somebody with Ignite, or just force them out of lane. Sometimes if you just drop them down to, 10% or less health, they might just have to back off that tower. They're going to miss CS. You're going to get plates with your Demolish. So you just want to be forcing plays with that Ignite, and with Flash also. Don't forget, you can still Flash on top of somebody and then R, and it will charm them, and then you can W them. So you can't R and then Flash on top of them, but you can Flash and then R. And when you're talking about like gold, platinum level play, and lower, even low diamond, people are not going to react to that. If you Flash in and then R immediately, they're going to have like, 0.1 second to react to that. So maybe pros can react to that a little bit better, but normal people are not going to react. So you should be using your Flash proactively to try to make plays with your ult as well. So yeah, I think that unflinching is really good, because your summoners are going to be on cooldown almost all the time. So this is like 20 free tenacity and slow resist, which is really sweet. Actually, you only get the slow resist, I think, for 10 seconds whenever it's on cooldown, but you get the free 20 tenacity at all times, and that alone is enough to pick these runes. Now, the next couple of runes that are kind of special that I've been playing around with as well, that I didn't come up with this, I just saw that like some high-end challenger Rakans were running this, and I think it's actually a really, really good build, is Presence of Mind. Everybody knows this is a really sweet rune. The thing about this is that it bypasses the cooldown reduction barrier, so when you get to 40% CDR, you can actually get more than 40% CDR on your ult with this. Because in a team fight, you're going to get so many assists, because all you have to do is shield anybody in the fight, and you're going to get an assist on everything. And you can force so many actions and force so many plays that you should be getting a lot of kills and a lot of assists on Rakan. And that's going to lower the cooldown by 10%. Getting 20% mana back is actually pretty relevant too, because you don't get a lot of mana regen with this build. If you go Zeke's Knight's Vow, that's not a lot of flat mana, and it's not a lot of mana regen. You also don't have any mana in any of your runes as well. So, and he doesn't have a huge mana pool. So getting back that 20% mana, especially for longer fights, can actually be a really big deal. So that's really sweet. Breaks the CDR cap. And I've had some people say, well, 40% CDR is enough. Why do you need more than that? It's never enough. When you have something like Rakan, you can never get enough CDR on that ult, because every time the ult's up, it's a kill. Like, every single time that ult's up, if you're playing Rakan correctly, it's either a kill or a flash. And a lot of times, it can be both, because if you try to R, run in on them, W, they flash, you just flash after them. If you have your flash up, you can still get the charm on them. So you can force a lot of action. So on any champion that has really high engage potential, like Rakan or Pyke or whatever, this is really good. Like, you want as much CDR as you can possibly get on your stuff. On someone like Janna, yeah, CDR is good, but you're already going to be sitting on your ult usually anyways. You're not going to be like running around looking for a play like, okay, where can I ult, when I'm Janna, right? You're going to be waiting until they engage on you. So they're kind of calling the shots and you're reacting to it. So CDR is good, but not as good on them. But on the hard engagers like Rakan, it's going to be really, really sweet. So I think that's great. And then one of the other sort of innovations here that people have been doing is this Legend Tenacity. And they buffed this a while ago back in mid-season 8, but people didn't really pay a lot of attention to it. But this is actually extremely strong on Rakan, especially if you pair this with Unflinching. That's going to give you 50 tenacity. Now, it stacks multiplicatively, but that's still really good. And if you throw in Mercury Treads on top of that, that's going to be 80 tenacity. I think Mercs are 30. They might be 20, but I think they're 30. So what that means is if there's like a 1 second stun duration on you, then you would take the 20% off of Unflinching. That'd take you down to 80. Then you take the 30% of 80, which would be 24 off. That'd take you down to 56. And then you take the 30% off of Mercury Treads, which would be 15 or something like that. 15, 16, 17, something like that. So that'll take it all the way down to like 0.4 seconds or 0.3 seconds once you get all of your stuff together. And so that means that you can run mobility boots and still have a lot of resistance to tenacity, because that's the number one way that Rakan dies. He's very mobile, so he can get away from stuff. Even if they have high damage, a lot of times you can dodge skill shots or you can get out of range of a lot of stuff. But if you get caught, right, if Lux binds you or Morg binds you or Lulu polymorphs you or whatever, and you don't have any tenacity, you're in big trouble, because you are squishy, right? You're agile, but you're squishy. And so if you can take away a lot of that CC, then that's going to save you just an astronomical amount of damage that you're going to take, because you're going to be able to get away. So I think that's a really, really big innovation that people have been doing. So, Presence of Mind, Legend Tenacity, and then running the Unflinching is really, really good. I've been having some great results with that. So, itemization, we talked about that already. Frostfang, Mobility Boots. If they have a lot of CC, you can still get Mercury Treads for the ultimate resistance. You can do your best Olaf impression, which is really fun. And then Zeke's Knight's Vow, Redemption. And you can do some of those other options that I talked about before. Okay, so we're going to keep going. I don't want to spend the entire thing talking about Rakan, but I still think he's great. And there have been some changes in sort of how to play him. And I've gotten a lot of questions about him on stream because I've been playing him a lot. So I just wanted to lay that out for you. Okay, we'll go through the rest of these faster here. Okay, Pyke is the other one that I think is super strong right now. Now, Pyke is a lot more contested than Rakan. So if we look here... look at ban rates. Pyke is at a almost a 48% ban rate. So that's the problem with like wanting to play Pyke, is that you need a lot of practice on him to be good. But at the same time, he has a really high ban rate versus something like Rakan is, you know, at like a 0.7 ban rate. So Rakan's basically never banned, and he's very rarely picked. He's only a 7%, which is still like there. It's respectable on the pick rate, but you know, it's maybe top 10. What? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12th most picked, and then not even worth talking about in terms of ban rate. So know that about Pyke. He is going to be banned a lot. But why is Pyke so good right now? Well, they made a couple of changes a few patches ago that give him a ton of extra gold on his ult. It basically gives him 50% more gold on his ult. Every time he gets a kill, he gets 1 extra year cut, which is, you know, pretty much like an extra assist worth of gold. And if the enemy takes that kill from you while you're in the animation of the R, you basically get full kill amount by getting 2 your cuts. So it gives him a ton of extra gold acceleration, which means he's going to be able to complete his items faster. He's going to get that Dust Blade, Ghost Blade a lot faster. Because that's one of the major problems with Pyke, or what had been a problem with support Pyke. He was really good in solo lanes for a few patches there, is that his items are just way more expensive. You know, when you're having to buy things like Ghost Blade, Dust Blade, that kind of stuff, I think they're like 2,700 gold a piece. And enchanters are buying stuff. They might be 20. I think they're 2,900 actually each. The enchanters are buying things like Redemption, you know, that are 2,100 gold. Knight's Vows, 2,200 gold. Athene's Unholy Grails, 2,100 gold. They're getting really far ahead of you because their items are like 30% less than your items. And so if you don't get ahead early, then you're just getting, 2,900 for each one of those. So if you don't get ahead early, then they're just going to outscale you with all their plus healing and shielding modifiers. But since he gets so much extra gold off of these kills and assists, then you can actually afford these items. And that's what makes him viable as kind of an AD assassin type of champion, is just because he gets the money to afford these items. Versus if you try to play like Zed support or Talon support or something, you're never going to see that money. So that's one thing that's really nice about him, is that he can actually get a lot of power for a support budget, which is rare. A couple other things that are nice. He's very good at dealing with poke and lane, because if he does get poked out, then he gets to heal through a lot of it just by going out of vision in a bush or pressing his W or whatever. So he's pretty resilient to poke. So if he's up against something like a Lux or a Nami or whatever, he can absorb quite a bit of poke. And then if you take Relic Shield, you can even heal some of that back as well. So you can take a combination of like Relic Shield, Second Wind, and his passive, and deal very well with poke. Whereas a lot of these other poke are like all-in type of champs, like your Nautilus, your Blitzcrank, that type of stuff. Alistar does have some healing in his kit, but a lot of them don't have really good ways to deal with poke. So if your AD carry's not helping you all in, or you're just not getting the right positioning, but you're eating a lot of poke while you're trying to position, you can still survive that as Pyke, which is really nice, especially when Lux is going to like be a big force on this next patch, I think, which we'll talk about here in a second. Yeah, he's just really good, resilient to poke. He's really fast. He gets around the map so quickly with Ghost Water Dive, which also scales with lethality. Also, his ult scales with lethality, which is so nice. But he can zip around the map. He can get around wards. He can get into the enemy base. Set down some really deep wards, because you can still place wards while you're cloaked. You can't use your sweeper while you're cloaked, but you can place wards. So he just has excellent vision control. Even if they catch you, no problem. Just jump over a wall with Phantom Undertow. So he just has so many escapes. He's got the Ghost Water to just sprint out of there, invisible. He's got Phantom Undertow, which allows you to dash away. And if they try to follow or flash after you, you're going to stun them anyways off of Phantom. So he's really hard to lock down and catch. He's really good at hunting down other people. People just disrespect cloaking as well in the game. Everybody knows that. You know, everyone's seen the games with Rengar or Twitch or Evelynn or whatever, just running haywire. He's a support that ends up doing that really well. So he's just kind of one of the premier roam around supports, kill supports. He's great. And then his hook got its cooldown lowered a while ago for some reason, and so it's 12 seconds at level 1. You think about like a Thresh hook, I believe, is 18. It might even be 20. Blitzcrank's is 20. Nautilus is somewhere in that ballpark, 18 to 20. So most hook champions are going to be up there. Rakan's W is 20. But for some reason, he has 12. And it only costs 70 mana, whereas like a Blitzcrank hook is 100. So it's just like really undercosted, a lot of his stuff. So it's a pretty good hook. Pretty good range on that hook too at 1100. Has great range and does actually pretty respectable damage. Max rank hooks 275 with a 0.67 ratio. So very, very good engage there. If you miss, it's fine. You can still get away. You know, you can still help peel a little bit with Phantom Undertow if they try to engage on you. So it's really good. Puts up a ton of damage. Phantom Undertow, once again, really nice at stunning. You can, of course, go with the Phantom, like use that first and then flash next to him and get that stun on him. So he has a lot of tools in his toolkit to help people out. And then, of course, the ult, especially with so many squishies running around in the game. Riot just refuses to make tanks viable in any role other than support. And I would say even as support, they're not viable and they're not popular most of the time. If you look at the highest win rate champions right now, you don't get to a tank. I mean, Maokai has such a low representation, but you don't get to a tank type of champion until, you know, much further down the list, right? At like Blitzcrank and Leona. And even then, they're only going to be played, you know, 7% of the time. Right? I guess Nautilus is played a little bit more. Like, you see tanks at higher elo, but a lot of the stuff that's going to win, that's going to be really popular, most of the time are going to be enchanters. You know, you've got your Janna, Bard, kind of enchanter, mage-ish, Nami, Soraka, Zillion, and then here you still have, you know, your Sona, Rakan, Zyra. So you're going to be playing against a lot of squishies, and there's not... You know, pretty much every role is running a lot of like glass cannon squishies, and so that's so many targets you can hit. In a tank meta, he falls off pretty hard because you only have like 2 targets you can execute if they have like 3 tanks on their team. But in this meta, you're gonna have 4 or sometimes even all 5 of the people on the enemy team are gonna be really squishy. And since your team's probably also running squishy glass cannon champions that do a ton of damage, that's so many opportunities, which is so many people dying everywhere and getting low. Death from below lets you rack up that cash. So. He's pretty OP right now, honestly. Like, the only reason that I don't have him at number 1 is that I don't think he defends very well. So if you fall behind and like the Talon or the Zed just keep killing your AD carry over and over again, there's not much you can do about that. Versus, or if they start focusing and killing you over and over again, which is hard to do. But if they get enough bursts, if they have like a 7-kill Diana, it can happen. He just doesn't have any defense for that, right? He's not taking Guardian. He does have Aftershock, which can help, but it's a little bit harder to use on defense. But he doesn't have the shield that Rakan has. He doesn't have like the more guaranteed CC with the charm plus the shield, the W. So I think he just has a little bit less tools in his toolkit, but he can snowball much harder if you get him online. So I would recommend just running Aftershock, Demolish, Conditioning, Unflinching. So the same setup, you'll notice this on a lot of the top-end champions. Same deal, Unflinching plus Legend Tenacity is really going to help you out because, once again, you're squishy, but you're very agile, and so you just want to get out of that CC. Now, with him, Conditioning is good. You can also take Bone Plating if you want to for kind of the early game. I'll just go ahead and put Bone Plating. With him, you can also do Second Wind as well because he doesn't have a shield or the healing that Rakan has, so you're just relying on your passive to heal up. So if you're against a heavy poke lane, I think Second Wind can be pretty good. And then Demolish, same deal as before. If you're causing a lot of pressure in lane, even if you're not killing him, you force him to take a bad back, and then you get free plates. Even if you only get 2 plates in a game, it's definitely going to be worth. Then you just want to rush mobility boots, Targon. Some people go coin on him. I just say Targons. You get extra healing. You get extra AD. It allows you to do more damage because, remember, your health converts over to AD. You get the extra regen, which is really nice. Don't forget that the fully upgraded Equinox does give you 200% healing, which is really, really nice, especially early on. So I would try to upgrade to Equinox quickly, and then just Dustblade, Ghostblade, Edge of Night. Ghostblade allows you to roam around the map a lot faster, so that can be really helpful. And then Dustblade allows you to have much better vision control. It gives you a lot more burst damage, but the big thing, especially as support, is it serves as a free extra sweeper that you get every minute or so. So Really powerful champion right now. It's hard to learn him because he's banned so much, but if you're familiar with him, he can definitely work. Okay, Lux is another one that got a massive buff on this patch. If you look at the patch notes here, remember Lux was a terror. She was like 54% a few patches ago. And you think about what was it that really knocked her out of the support role? It was her shield, right? They basically took out like 30% of her shielding. But now they're basically giving it back. I mean, look at this number. Plus 80 to her shield. 80. So I did the math in the patch notes video. It's very, very close to what it originally used to be now. It's actually much more if you only hit them with a single shield. If you know, they would have died or they like flash or dash out of the second part of your shield, it's actually a lot more now than it used to be. But even if you hit them with both parts, it's close. Before it used to be 330, and it had slightly better scaling because it was tripled instead of just applying the same thing 100% again. So it did scale a little bit better with plus healing and shielding and AP and stuff like that. But it's still just going to be insanely strong. I mean, to put this into context, once again, you know, I always like to use Janna as kind of the baseline. Janna has a 220 shield that is on a get this out of here. 220 shield that's on a 20-second cooldown to start with, and is even like later on is on a 12-second cooldown, even once you get maximum points into it, and can only affect a single person, right? So you have to choose. Whereas Lux, Prismatic Barrier goes down to 10 seconds, starts at 14, goes down to 10 seconds, only costs 60 mana. Janna's costs 100. Has 1075 range. Janna's has 800. And Janna's heals for 210 on a single target, where this is 150 for every target. If you just hit them once, you can hit them twice. That's a 1500 shield if you hit all 5 people. Now, are you going to hit all 5 people twice? Probably not. You hit 2 people twice, okay, 600 shield. It's just OP as hell. I don't know why they're doing that again. I don't even think she's that bad right now. I know her win rate is, like, not insane. You know, she's sitting at, like, a 48% win rate, but whatever, man. I still think she's really good. So, we'll see. I think Lux is definitely going to be back in Pro for sure. I think that she'll be back on this patch, but massive buffs. It's like, can you not just start off with, I don't know, a 20 shield buff or something? Like, why does it have to be 80 for the double tap? Anyways, so kind of your defense build is going to be Aftershock, Font of Life, Bone Plating, Revitalize, and then Taste of Blood and Relentless Hunter. This gives you the extra movement speed because she doesn't have any speed ups or like ways to get around the map really quickly. So Relentless Hunter helps you out with that a lot, and then Taste of Blood helps you with trading. If you want to be more aggressive early on in the laning phase, you can go Comet, Mana Flow, Absolute Focus, and Scorch. And then I like Ghost Poro and Relentless Hunter. Ghost Poro allows you to get to 30 AP around 15 minutes because you're going to have your warding item. So you can just let those wards expire and just place them on time every time. And you'll probably get 30 AP in 15 to 20 minutes and a little bit of extra scouting, but you're really just doing it for the AP. And then Relentless Hunter. So this actually could be quite good in a high damage poke lane. But both of these still going to be pretty strong. You do Font of Life on her instead of Demolish, by the way, because your Q stuns them for a long time, and that's going to allow your entire team to attack them. And you're going to take Ardent Sensor, which is going to allow the Ardent Sensor to be on everybody, even if you don't hit them with your shield. So that's why I take Font of Life. Although, if you think you are going to completely smash the lane, you know, you could still have an argument for Demolish there. Then I like Ionian Boots. You can also do Moby Boots if you want there. Frostfang, Athenes. It's very important that you rush Athenes first. Sometimes I see support Luxes do like Ludens or whatever. You really need Athenes. This is what made her OP, like the combination of Aftershock and Athenes. This gives you magic resist early. A lot of the champions in the bot lane are going to be doing magic damage when they try to trade with you. And because you have such good poke with your E, you're able to charge up Athenes pretty heavily and distribute that among a ton of people with your shield. So she's just very good at putting out a lot of damage, both burst damage with like her ult, you know, her entire combo, but then also pretty good poke damage with her E, which allows you to fill Athenes and get a lot of effective healing off of that shield. So Athenes, just trust me, it's super OP. If you don't get it, it's really good on pretty much any enchanter, but especially Lux, just because of how well she can fill it up. It also gives you some extra sustain in lane because every time you get mana regen, it turns into health regen, and you don't have any natural healing in the lane. So once again, Chalice of Harmony, going to be very, very strong. Like we were talking about with Rakan, why some people are even doing Athenes on Rakan these days. And then after that, you can either go Ardent Censer or Redemption. Ardent Censer is a lot more reliable. You can put it on a lot of people, and it just works, right? It just always has effectiveness. But Redemption, you have to aim it. Your allies have to not run out of it. So it just depends on how much of a team fight comp your team has. If it's just a Clown Fiesta, don't do Redemption. It's not going to be worth it. But if your team is having actual, like, coordinated 5v5s, then it can be really good. So Lux, I think, still going to be really huge in this meta. Right now, she is a little bit soft to Pyke, so make sure Pyke's banned if you're playing Lux. But I think she actually has some pretty decent game against Rakan. She's pretty good against almost everything. It's just hard to interact with her because she has such long range, hard engage with her Q, but she can also poke you down with her E, and she has really good scaling, so you can't even try to outscale her with that shield. So I might dust off Lux and try her again this patch. We'll see. But yeah, I think that she's going to be very, very strong. I expect a 4% win rate boost. I mean, I don't see any way she's not 52 or 53% on this patch in solo queue. So I think she's definitely going to be the biggest mover on this patch. Okay, Nami, I've talked about a lot in past patches. My second most played champion was my most played until last week when Rakan eclipsed her. Just a really good all-around champ. She's a very good Athene's abuser because she does damage with her W whenever you use it on somebody, but then it bounces back and can also heal you and heal your allies. So great Athene's abuser, great with Ardent Censer. You can bounce around on different people. If you take Airy, which you should, you can actually put your Tidecaller's Blessing on your AD carry. That's going to put Airy on them, which will trigger Ardent Censer, and then you can use your W on your frontliners, so it'll bounce around and give all of them Ardent Censer as well. So it's really simple on her to get Ardent Censer on, 3 or 4 allies. So just a great abuser of some of the most popular and powerful items. Really good trading in lane with ebb and flow. It's point click. You can hide behind minions while you do it. You don't have to hit any skill shots. It both damages and heals on the exact same ability. So fantastic. She also has like decent all-in with Aqua Prison. It's kind of weird. You have to get used to it because it just lands on a spot rather than being like a line skill shot. So it can be easy to miss if you're not used to it, but it's really, really good if you hit it. It's 1.5 second stun just with even 1 point in it. So that's pretty massive. And then she's just really good at sort of dictating the pace of fights. You can speed up allies with your Surging Tides passive. You can slow down enemies with your Tidecaller's Blessing. Your Tidal Wave has a pretty big hitbox and a pretty long range, so you can usually hit people with that. You can disrupt things like Jhin ulting, Xerath ulting. Like, there's a lot of fringe cases with Tidal Wave that are pretty good. So just an all-around good, well-rounded champion. She's not going to scale as hard as something like a Lulu or a Janna. But she's going to have a better early game, and she brings a lot more CC to the table. So I think that she's still really good. She is actually one of the highest win rate champions right now as well. So for whatever that's worth, win rates do matter, and you need to look at it. Obviously, my first 2 picks, Pyke and Rakan, don't have the most stellar win rates, although they're okay, just because they're harder to play. But Nami is pretty consistent once you get used to her, and I think she's pretty much good in almost every meta, and this meta is no exception. So definitely try out Nami if you haven't played her yet. I think Airy, Mana Flow Ban, Absolute Focus, Scorch. I'd probably go off of Footwear Biscuits now, and I'd probably just do like Bone Plating, Revitalize. If you think you're going to dominate the lane and they don't have a really good all-in engage comp, then you can do Demolish on her as well. But Revitalize does synergize extremely well with Redemption, with Athenes, so definitely consider those. But after the nerf to Biscuit, I would go away from that. And the nerf to Biscuit is going to make some of these enchanters a little bit stronger as well, just because they're going to have the healing to compensate, because I think most AD carries are going to go off of Biscuit this patch. We'll see. But I think they're going to go back probably to something like Absolute Focus plus Gathering Storm, or they might go into the Domination tree and go for something like Taste of Blood and Relentless Hunter. I wouldn't be surprised. I think that's a really undervalued combination on AD carries because it helps them rotate around the map and get to situations. Like Relentless Hunter is extremely good, and not a lot of people get that rune. But it is quite nice. You might see even some of the hard engaged champs like Ashe or something like that. Like, I could even imagine a world where they would get something like Ulti Hunter if it's like Ashe. I know that Vayne was doing Ulti Hunter for a little bit there. Maybe Varus. I don't know. But I think that Domination is really underexplored, and after the nerf to Biscuit, they'll go that. But the main takeaway is there's not going to be as much easy sustain with Biscuit, although if they take Taste of Blood, it's similar sustain to Biscuit. But Either way, I think that Enchanter is going to be nice. A lot of people are probably still going to take Biscuit because they're not going to pay attention or think critically about the nerfs. A lot of people don't even read patch notes, but it's going to make healing a little bit better just because Biscuits are worse. Okay, and then Sona is still going to be really strong. I just don't think in good faith, if you're talking to an audience of mostly gold and lower people, which is what this tier list is designed for, I think that it still is like really good for platinum and low diamond, but you just can't ever take Sona out of tier 1 or tier 2. She has been nerfed. Her win rate's not as high, but she's just so consistent. Like, you just can't mess her up. You know, if you get to 3 items, you're going to be a force. You're going to take over late game. She's the best abuser in the game of Ardent Censer plus Athene's. Just don't die. Poke whenever you can in the laning phase. You know, press R when someone tries to dive your AD carry or when you have a team fight. And just spam. Just roll your hand across the keyboard on QW and just auto-attack people, and you'll probably win team fights. If the fight goes longer than 5 seconds, you win. The only thing that holds her back from being higher right now is there's just no tanks in the meta, so everyone's just dying, like, instantly, and so you don't get a chance to cast multiple Ws for the healing. But if you do happen to have something like a Sejuani, who got nerfed on this patch, but if you do have some kind of tanks on your team, you have, like, a Jarvan who's maybe building tanky, or... can't even think of other tanks. Just maybe stuff that's hard to kill. Maybe not a tank per se, but like an Irelia or an Aatrox or something like that on your team. Then you probably can win. It's just that tanks aren't in the meta. But she's very good. She's very consistent. You can't really mess her up. If you have a hard time with mechanics or you just want to focus on your macro, she's still going to be a force. And you're just going to get the same items on her. It's just going to be, you know, Frostfang, Athene's, Ardent Censer, the Enchanter Suite, and then you're just going to go Airy all the way down, standard build, Scorch, Absolute Focus, and then Revitalize and Bone Plating. Okay, Zyra is another one that's going to be pretty strong. I talk about her pretty much every patch. It's kind of the same as Sona. She just never goes out of style in the sense that, especially for a gold minus audience, you can just always dominate a Zyra. She does so much damage with her plants. Healing is going down a little bit on this patch, like we mentioned just a second ago with Biscuits. That means your poke's going to be a lot better. She has pretty good game against things like Pyke, Blitzcrank, Nautilus, because her plants can block those hooks, and she can actually put up enough damage to kill them if they misstep. They have to respect you, but a lot of people in gold aren't going to respect her damage. So lane domination is very good right now, because if you force them out of lane, you're going to get plates, you're going to get priority on dragon, you're going to get scuttles, you're going to have an opportunity to get deep rewards, maybe even roam around. You are even seeing her in pro play a little bit right now, just because lane domination early is so important because of those plates, because dragons are so valuable right now. But the problem is in the mid game, if you don't get ahead, then if you get caught out, you know, just walking through your jungle and, you know, Kha'Zix jumps over a wall and deletes you, or Zed, or Kiana, or just anybody that has a million jumps right now in this meta, they catch you out, you're going to die. You have virtually no defenses. Decent players will flash your E, even at lower levels, so... She has a hard time in the mid game if you're not ahead. But she does have very, very good team fighting. She's just really kind of bad at the Clown Fiesta. But, you know, early on, if you can dominate, if you get a couple of tower plates or even a couple of kills, you can snowball that really hard. Force team fights around Dragon, force team fights around Baron, make them come to you so that you don't get caught out, and you can just completely delete people by yourself. It's not uncommon as Zyra to have the #1 damage in the game as support if you get on a roll and start snowballing. So she puts out some extreme damage, and I really prefer her over champions like Brand, primarily because of the plants. Like, the plants are basically free wards later on in the game that end up being on like a 12-second cooldown. I recommend maxing Rampant Growth second, and the reason for this is most of your damage comes from your plants. And so you want to be able, you want both of your plants when a fight starts, so you want to be able to scout over a wall or something with your plants, and then you want to be able to have it back up, you know, in 8 to 10 seconds, depending on your CDR, in order to use it for fights. So I recommend maxing Plant second. There could be an argument for maxing Deadly Spine second. This will give you better all-in damage. If you're looking for single target burst and you don't really care about the scouting or the plants, you can go for that. I would never max Spines first. I have people ask me about that a lot on the stream. You always want to max E first, and the main reason is this is your crowd control. And it's a very, very big difference in whether they're CC'd for 1 second or CC'd for 2 seconds. And that's an entire extra plant volley that's going to happen if they're CC'd for 2. It's much more likely they're going to get knocked up by your ult, take even more plant damage, because if it's only 1 second, if you only put 1 point Grasping Root early, then they're going to be able to, like, they're going to wake up out of this, and they're going to be able to flash out of your knock-up. Because remember, they have to be trapped in this. It's after 2 seconds, then they get knocked upward. And so they're going to wake up after 1 second, and then they're going to be able to flash and dash out of this. And so they're not going to get knocked up. They're probably not going to die. But if it's 2 seconds, then they're going to have to flash, like, basically immediately, or you're going to die. And if you're doing your combo correctly, if you're really confident that E is going to hit him, you can actually start the Strangle Thorns before the E even hits him, to further ensure, like, you throw your grasp, and then while it's heading towards them, you know, you double plant and then immediately cast Strangle Thorns. So, anyways, I think she's really good just because another thing is she can do everything regardless of the positioning of the minion. So she can spawn range plants with spines without the minions. She can CC people through the minions. She can ult through minions. None of it matters. Like, minions don't diminish your potential at all. Versus something like Brand, you have to have a clear shot to hit him with your Q to get that stun, which can be a problem. That's going to open you up to hooks. So if you're against something like a Pyke or a Blitzcrank or a Nautilus or whatever, whenever you step out to try to land that Q to get the stun, they're also going to be able to hook you. Versus with Zyra, you can always threaten the root and hide behind your minions. So not only do the minions not block you or not protect the enemy from your stuff, but your minions can protect you and can block the enemy stuff. So I think that makes it, she's a lot more consistent, and you can play her a lot safer than other champions. And even open field, like I said before, you can spawn plants to help protect you or help protect your AD carry from hooks or other skill shots. So, you know, that's kind of like some next level Zyra stuff, but once you play her a lot, you can do that pretty consistently. Blitz is running up, looks like he's going to hook your AD carry. Okay, let's spawn a Q plant there and block it. So I think that's really nice. Adds a lot of extra utility. Another thing with Brand, if you try to Brand ult in like a minion wave, then that minion's going to eat a lot of the damage, right? So if you're like, just a fight breaks out and there's 2 minion waves there, which is very common, especially in lower elo where people don't manage waves correctly, those minions will eat damage. Like, the stuff will bounce and hit minions. Some of your bounces will, and that sucks. Versus with Zyra, the plants are always going to hit you if you were the target of the most recent spell. So I think that's just a little bit better as far as like AI and taking some more of that randomness out of there with the Brand bounces. People can also like spread out and play around the Brand bounces. So Brand can do a ton of damage, especially if the enemy has a bunch of melee on their team. But I just think that Zyra is going to put up more damage. Another thing, if they have stuff like Braum or Yasuo or whatever, like, that can eat your ult, and that sucks. When your ult goes flying into a Yasuo wind wall, that feels terrible. But at the same time, you can still spawn your plants with the Yasuo wind wall, and you can spawn your ult through it. So yeah, he's going to block some damage. The plants will block your range plant damage, but not your melee plant damage. But it won't prevent your ult either. So yeah, Yasuo still kind of sucks. Yeah, Braum can block some of the plant damage from your range plants, but ultimately you're going to have a much better matchup. Now, you aren't going to see those champions all the time, but I'm just giving you some examples where Zyra's damage just overall is more consistent than Brand's, and there's less counterplay for the enemy. And she can be safer overall because of vision later and because of the wave positioning during the laning phase. So I like going Comet, Mana Flow, Absolute Focus, Scorch, and then Taste of Blood, Ulti Hunter is what I had been running on her. I like that a lot. Her ultimate is powerful. This does give you extra sustain. You can go Biscuits Boots if you want, but Biscuits were just nerfed. You could try going something like Presence of Mind, Coup de Grace. It's very similar to this. Presence of Mind, this in the long run will give you a stronger cooldown on your ult. I think 25%. You'd have to get 3 assists before Presence of Mind would give you more. And Taste of Blood is just so easy to proc and is very consistent healing because of your ranged plants. So I like this, but you know, you could do Coup de Grace, Presence of Mind. It would give you a little bit more damage, a little bit less sustain, but similar to CDR. And you just want to go Frostfang, Leandries, Rylai's. I like going Sork Boots. Pros will go Mobility Boots, but I would just go for more damage in solo queue. Yeah, I think this is the way to go. You can get Morello's if you really, really need the healing reduction, but otherwise, I would probably just try to go for this combo. It's a lot more damage. Check out the Zyra guide if you want to know more about it. But yeah, that's what I would build. We'll go a little bit longer here because I know I talked a lot about Rakan, and I did that last patch. I didn't mean to do that much this time, but I just get so many questions about it. So we'll go to like an hour 15 or something here. Make sure I give some of these other champions a little bit more of a fair treatment, even though whatever. Hit the cog and speed it up if you want to go faster. Anyways, we got Bard coming in. Now, Bard is someone that I'm going to admit just flat out, I don't understand his rise to fame here. I've looked it up. You know, typically he's like a 50% champ, but lately He's gone up a lot more now in like pro level play. He's even up a little bit in pro, and I just cannot pinpoint what's up with this guy because as far as I can tell, there's no new technology here. I mean, I guess people are going Athenes now. Maybe people weren't going Athenes before. He did get some like what I thought were minor buffs. I mean, he got a buff to his W. They changed his E last patch so that you can max your W first and still get pretty good value out of the E, the thing that tunnels through walls. So maybe that's what it was. Maybe that just like opened him up and just gave him much more early game pressure because now he has a stronger W that he can charge up for better sustain in lane. Or maybe it like, because you can level up W, it's going to have a higher base value so that Athene's Unholy Grail will heal for more. I mean, sometimes some really small things can add up and like create a really huge domino effect with champions. So he's really hot right now. I mean, he's got 56 in pro. In solo queue, he's the second highest win rate champion, which is crazy because he's also one of the hardest supports to play. I'd say he's probably the second hardest support to play behind Thresh. It's because he's so weird and like you have to play him a lot and get used to his stuff. Because if you ult wrong with him, you can completely throw an entire game. It's one of the only ults that can actively be really bad for your team. Not just missing it, but like actually like interacting with your own teammates. There aren't many ults that also interact with your teammates potentially in a negative way. So very hard to play correctly. You definitely want to practice him a lot. But he doesn't have much presence. He has almost no ban rate, low pick rate, high win rate. But still, like, his pick rate's high enough where you got to respect it. It's not like Malachi. It's like 0.3. You know, he's got 5%. I mean, that's more than Sona. That's more than Zyra. So people are picking him, and he's winning games. So, you know, and like I said, I haven't played a ton on Rakan. I don't fully understand, like, what's up with him. Like I said, the best I can go for is just that change to his W and his E. Those buffs may have helped him out a lot. But yeah, with him, you just want to go in. You want to trade with those auto attacks. Get your meeps whenever you can. Make sure you communicate to your teammate when you're getting meeps and try to get it when you have priority in your lane. So make sure that you're pressing up your lane with auto attacks, threatening with Q. You're getting priority. Then after you get priority, ping your AD carry back like 3 or 4 times and just say, hey, I'm going to go like grab meeps. And then while you're grabbing the meeps, see if you can like make a play or something. Mid lane, if there's like, you know, a meep that's like halfway up the river, you might as well go take a look at mid lane. See if you can throw a Q and force a flash or something. Try to get some deep wards in enemy jungle. So while you're up there, just do something productive while you're getting the meeps. Either, you know, try to get a summoner from mid lane, help your jungler invade, get some wards on the enemy jungle so that you can at least track where they are. Just do something productive. Another good trick is just like get your meeps. When you have mobility boots and you back with your AD carry, that's a good time to go get your meeps because they're going to be, you know, shambling back to lane really slowly with brown boots, probably in the early game, and you're going to have your Moby boots. So you should be able to go around and get those meeps. And keep in mind that the meeps speed you up a lot. I don't remember the exact number on it, but they speed you up a lot. So they really want you to go get all of those meeps at once. So don't feel like you have to leave lane every time 2 meeps pop up. You have to go leave lane and get them immediately. You don't. Just chill, wait, and then go grab the meeps all at once, especially the ones that are further away because you get a huge amount of movement speed so that you can go get them all really quickly and go back to bot lane. So don't feel like you have to go get them immediately. Also, meeps give you mana. So even if there's a meep that's like really close to your lane, that's like just barely in the river, you don't have to go get it immediately, right? Just use a little mana, throw a Q, drop a couple of shrines, let them start charging up for health, and then go grab that because it gives you quite a bit of mana back. Once again, I don't remember exact numbers on him, and we're kind of running out of time, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. But, you know, you just have to practice him and try to play him intelligently. But I think the biggest thing that differentiates good Bard play from bad Bard play that a lot of people don't think about is meep timing and how you go get them. And what you're doing while you're getting them. You know, making sure that you're doing the wards, the roaming, the ganks, all of that stuff effectively at a time when your AD carry is probably not going to die. So all that's very tricky decision making. And then you also, you know, just have to get used to the angles, like hitting your Qs for the stuns. There's weird stuff, like you can hit the enemy minion first and then hit the enemy to get the stun. You can pin people against walls. You can pin, you know, the 2 allies together. So there's a lot of stuff you can do there. And then it's using your ult proactively. Like whenever you can, don't try to do anything too fancy with him, especially while you're learning him. Just put that ult on the enemy, throw it on him, run over there, hit him with your Q, see if you can get a stun. If you can't, at least slow him. And that's usually enough for a kill, right? Because if you land your ult on somebody, you know, Jinx can throw chompers on him. Caitlyn can throw a trap on top of them. Ashe can hit them with an arrow. You know, usually they're dead, right, if you hit them with that. So that's pretty good. There's also a lot of the popular AD carries don't have a lot of movement right now, or at least some of them. Thinking of things like Jinx is pretty immobile, so she's pretty easy to hit with that. That could also be contributing to it, but just use it proactively. Try to get the kill with it. Don't try to be too fancy. Although you can do fancy stuff as well. You can shut off towers if you're trying to dive. You can ult people so that Ignite doesn't kill them, or so that Karthus doesn't kill them, or so that like an Ezreal or a Jinx rocket doesn't kill them. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do with it. But, you know, just level 1 while you're learning. Just use it offensively on the enemy just to engage. So, pretty strong champion. Kind of weird. Once again, I do not know a lot about him. I've hardly ever played him, and he's just really, really weird. I don't play against him a ton. But I can tell you, when it's a good bard, he can feel pretty oppressive if he's getting really good roams and really good engages. Okay. Sorry, my headphones are acting kind of weird there. Okay, Janna. Another one we'll mention here. She's just, she's kind of the queen of the roost again. She snuck back up there, and a lot of this is mostly just because, what is it, Rory?
I guess she likes tumbling more than that.
Oh, no. Understandable, understandable. But yeah, so Janna, 53% win rate. A lot of this is because Sona got nerfed down a little bit. Lux got nerfed down, so she rose up. She just has really good peel. If you have a good AD carry, and most of the good AD carries run crit these days, most notably Jinx is what I'm thinking of, but Sivir's running a lot of crit. You know, Tristana's starting to have a revival. Jen, I think, is still pretty good, especially at lower elo brackets. Caitlyn's pretty good. A lot of them are running crit. Some of the only ones that don't run crit are like Kai'Sa and Ezreal that are strong right now. Even Lucian's starting to run a little bit more crit, right? He's going Essence Reaver second. It's becoming a lot more popular. Essence Reaver and IE second. So the extra AD that you get off of Janna's shield is super valuable because, you know, it might look like, oh, whatever, it's just 40 extra AD, or, you know, when you have 100 AP with like your Athenes or something, oh, it's 50 extra AD, not a big deal. But it is, because you got to remember this can crit. So if you look at her shield, as I always say, what is it, dear?
Daughter's a genius. This is her drawing of dinosaurs. Look how realistic this is.
I think that's a Pollock. I think we should put that online right now for $1 million.
Yeah. Dinosaurs.
That is definitely the face of impressionism, or whatever Pollock was. Anyways, but yeah, so you got to remember that they can crit with this, and when they have Infinity Edge, they're doing extra crits. So like, even if it's just 50 damage here, right, and it lasts for however long it lasts before it breaks. Even if the enemy gets off like 3 auto attacks, very basic scenario, you shield them, they get off 3 autos before it breaks. That's still 150 extra damage on this ability. And if they get off like 5 autos, that's 250. If they crit on like 40% of that, or 50% of that, if they have 2 crit items, then a crit's going to be 80. So 2 of those are going to be 80. So now really quickly you can get up to 200, 300. Sometimes if they have really fast attack speed and nobody breaks the shield, you know, it can get up to like 500 damage. So just imagine that this reads shields for 220 and also deals 300 damage. You'd just be like, damn, that's OP. Well, it is. And that's why Janna has been, I would say historically, she has to be in solo queue the highest win rate support of all time. Now, they've nerfed her like a billion times. But she's still really good. She's very fast, so she's great at the Clown Fiesta. She can zip around the map and just show up at the right moment to drop a shield, a tornado, an ult, whatever, influence the fight. She makes people want to throw their keyboard through the window because just when they think somebody's dead, you know, this huge shield comes up, and all of a sudden the AD carry crits them for like 1,500 because of the extra AD, and they don't know what happened. So she's one of the biggest violators of hidden power in the game. People just do not understand why this champion's good. It's a meme, basically. Oh, it's a Janna player. You know, like this just super passive e-girl, like just hang out and don't do anything and get carried. But the thing is, like, she has so many stats that she puts on the enemy with E. And actually, really good Janna play is actually harder than a lot of other supports out there because you're reacting to the enemy. You're not proactively making a play. You're not saying, okay, I'm going to land this hook, right? I mean, how much play does that make? You know, it's just like you just get used to the hook animation. You throw it. Sometimes you hit it. Sometimes you don't. But you don't get to make that choice as Janna. You're saying, okay, they're coming in on me. I have to react fast enough. This Leona just E'd my AD carry. I have to tornado fast enough where they don't connect with that. Or this Jarvan's about to flag and drag, you know, and knock up my AD carry. I have to knock him out of that with Howling Gale. Or Zach's engaging over a wall. I have to see that fast enough and react quickly enough at the right angle with Howling Gale to knock him out of the air. So, or like Lee Sin just connected with his Q. I have to try to knock him out with Howling Gale and play this little game of cat and mouse. Is when is he going to try to press the second Q? Right? So there's a lot of counterplay, you know, and you have to be like pretty good to use Howling Gale effectively, you know. I think sometimes she gets lumped in with Sona as just kind of this roll your hand across the keyboard champion when she's really not that. Like, if you're playing Janna well, you have to react. And she's one of the only supports where it's like, you react. You don't make the call. You have to anticipate when they're going to make the call, when they're going to go in, and you have to stop it. So, she's not the hardest to play out there, but I think she is a little bit harder to play her at, like, a good level than people might initially think out there. And, like, good Monsoon usage as well, kind of like Bard. You can screw up a whole team fight if you use this wrong. You can blow the enemy to safety. You know, it can be really bad, especially if you have an AoE team comp, you know, like Kennan's trying to, like, run in there, just pops his ult, and then you, like, Monsoon to blow the enemy back so you can heal your AD carry. Sometimes the right call might be just let your AD carry die there so that Kennan can kill the rest of the team with his ult. So it can be kind of tricky when you're learning her. So, yes, she's like, really easy to pick up, I would say, but, like, maybe intermediate to slightly challenging to, like, master, just because there are so many different, you have to know the enemy so well and what they're trying to do in order to counter it effectively. So, pretty good. You're just going to get the same standard items on her: Athene's Unholy Grail, Ardent Censer, Redemption. But yeah, I think she definitely deserves that. Now, you might say, why is she not tier 1? Because you can't do proactive plays, right? You can't be the one who makes the call and says, hey, I'm going to go make this play right now. I'm going to hard carry 1v9, you know, all of these clowns on my team. You have to work around them. You have to say, okay. And she can't work, like, she's best around AD champions. So if it's an AP champ on your team that's, like, hard carrying, you know, if you have, like, a Zyra or a Rumble or something like that that's hard carrying, that shield's not going to do a lot to help them. So I think that's, so she just doesn't quite have as much hard carry potential in every combination, but she's very, very good at what she does. If you have the higher scaling AD carry, you have a Jinx and you protect her, and it's a smart Jinx, it's very, very difficult to stop Janna. I mean, Janna just puts a freaking massive roadblock on almost anything the enemy wants to do. So as long as you have the higher scaling comp and you're in a better position, she protects leads better than almost anybody, because she just prevents your team from screwing up a lot, right? Because she can help reposition. She's the queen of peel. Has really nice healing and shielding, excellent scaling. So, yeah, she's just not proactive, but she's really, really good on defense. She's that 300-pound linebacker that's protecting your quarterback. Doesn't look like it. Maybe that's what they need for his skin, right? Linebacker Janna would be pretty funny. But that's pretty much what she is. I mean, she's a bigger linebacker, a bigger block to getting to that AD carry than something like Nautilus or Leona or any of these other bigger people could ever dream of. Now, Nautilus is pretty good at peeling, but I would say Janna's even better. So anyways, I still think that she's really good. She's just not as proactive. Soraka is another one who can hard 1v9 carry if the enemy doesn't get grievous wounds. My problem with Soraka is that a lot of her power is dependent on the enemy being dumb, pretty much, is what it comes down to. And there's not really a more polite way to say it. Like, if they buy Executioners, you're going to be in trouble, right? Or if they buy, like, Morello, you're going to be in trouble. But if they don't buy Executioners, it just feels like Soraka is so overpowered. Like, you just cannot get through all of that healing. So, you know, it just kind of depends. She does have really good poke in lane, you know, with her Q, with her E. She can put up a lot of poke. But kind of similar to Zyra, if you get caught out in the open, you don't have any escapes. You can just completely get murdered. So she's not that great in Clown Fiesta. She really wants organized 5v5 fights, and she really wants tanks on her team, because the higher the armor and the magic resist, the more effective heals end up being. Right, because if you heal somebody for 200, they have 100 armor, then they're going to have to do 400 damage to counteract that 200 heal. They have 200 armor, then they're going to have to do 600 damage to counteract that heal. So the more armor and magic resist your teammates have when you heal them, the better she is, right? Because the healing doesn't matter so much if somebody gets completely deleted and one-shotted, right? By the Talon, the Zed, the Diana, the Kiana, you know, whatever champions are really popular right now, the Akali. So, because there are so many squishy champions in the game, because there's such a high amount of damage, I think that makes her a little bit weaker. But if we start seeing some more tanks eventually, then she'll definitely move up the rankings a little bit more. But she's pretty good. She just has like a lot more limited CC than Nami, and she's just not quite as safe and doesn't bring as much utility as some of the other enchanters, but she's pretty good. Okay, Lulu could, in theory, be a little bit higher on the list. She doesn't have a phenomenal win rate. Usually she's floating around 50%. Lulu scales really well with on-hit champions. So if you have something like a Kaisa or a Vayne or whatever, it's very good because she gives out a ton of extra attack speed with her W. And you can also put Pyx on your AD carry with the E, and then every time they attack, if they have a lot of attack speed, if they're building a lot of attack speed items, or they just have abilities that give them a lot of attack speed, then they do basically an extra amount of on-hit damage. It's not technically on-hit. It doesn't scale with Gensu's, but on attack, like 70 extra damage in the mid-game, which is a ton. So yeah, if you have someone that auto-attacks a lot and does that very effectively, is a Gensu's user, has a lot of on-hit abilities, she's going to be very strong. So traditionally, very good with like Kog'Maw is probably the number one person people think of with Lulu. He's kind of out of the meta right now, but she's also really good with like Kaisa, Vayne, just all of these Gensu users are going to be really good with her. She's also got some pretty decent game against Assassins because she has a low cooldown ult, which gets through Ignite. So it's just a burst. It's an infusion of health. It's not affected by grievous wounds. It also doesn't scale with plus healing and shielding, though. So that's kind of one of the drawbacks of Lulu is she does not scale very well with plus healing and shielding at all. It doesn't do anything for her ult, and her shield is pretty low value and breaks fairly easily in fights. So, doesn't do as well with Ardent Sensor and Redemption as far as like the plus healing and shielding goes. Revitalize, once again, not going to be amazing on her most of the time. But the on-hit from Ardent Sensor, in addition to your W with the extra attack speed and the on-attack with the picks that you can put on people, puts out a lot of damage. So basically, she puts out the highest scaling damage on a single target person who attacks fast. It can be a melee person. It can be like a Master Yi or whatever. But if you have someone who really loves to auto, then she's going to be great. Another big problem with Lulu is you have to choose. Do you want to polymorph for the big CC, or do you want to put the big attack speed on the person? You can't do both. And that's one of the biggest drawbacks. It's like her Q is really lackluster late game. Her shield is really lackluster compared to other shields out there. Her ult's good and her W is good, but you only have 2 abilities, pretty much. So she can be really good, but is not quite as reliable as some of the others. Okay, one of the final ones I'll mention here is Shen. Now, Shen, I think, will make a resurgence in pro play. And the main reason that I think this is that they've nerfed the main other macro pro play champion, Tahm Kench here. Because people pick Tahm in pro. Not only does he save the AD carry really well, but he also helps with split push. So he defends against split push, and he enables split push really well. Because he can hang out mid lane and just zip over and appear in a side lane anytime. Right, on a really like low cooldown ult. So that's why people use him, and that doesn't matter as much in solo queue because you don't have people that know what they're doing when they're trying to split push and they're playing like a 1-3-1 comp. People don't know that. They just run around and just find stuff and try to kill it, right? But these nerfs are pretty significant. Taking the move speed down to 335 makes him much, much more dangerous in the laning phase. A few patches ago, they also nerfed him to where when he eats one of his allies, he basically doesn't move at all, hardly. It's like super slow. So that takes away a lot of his safety. And then the thick skin duration is a big deal too. So this is mostly going to hurt top lane Tahm Kench, but I think it does hurt support Tahm Kench quite a bit. And they also specifically gave a buff to Shen, which is very significant. For those of you that may not remember, Shen top lane was actually really, really good. He's been good in several different metas over time. If tanks are viable top, he's almost certainly going to be one of them because he has great macro with his ult. So he can zip around the map, influence fights, and their entire comps built around this. They call them like the submarine Shen comps, where you'd have something like Rengar jumping onto the enemy. These days it would probably be Jarvan can jump onto people with the ult, and then Shen can ult the Jarvan, and then he's going to appear right on top of them. He gives extra survivability to Jarvan who goes in, but then he also is able to like taunt a bunch of people as well. So provides excellent side lane split push pressure. Now as a support, you can't always do that, but you can go something like ZZ Rot Portal, or you could go Sunfire's not as good. I think ZZ Rot could situationally be all right. But you can try to go split push, or you can even roam. Just roam around the map, try to make a play. Your AD carry gets in trouble bot lane, no problem. You know, go straight back bot with your ult, turn it around. So it just allows you to roam around and try to participate in the fiesta and just kind of be in all places at once. So he really excels in the fiesta to some extent because he can be in multiple places at once. And this is a very big deal because remember, this is on 3 different hits. So yeah, it's only 1% of their max health, but this was one of the nerfs that really knocked him out of contention, is that 3% extra max health total is a really big deal. So I've got Shen. I think I still have him pulled up. Maybe I pulled it off of the Shen. But I think that he could be played. He has been played before in Pro. Now, the main reason that people were playing him, part of it was he was so good with Banner because he can provide that extra side lane pressure and put a Banner minion up. So that was just like a match made in heaven. Shen, and he obviously doesn't need mana. So Shen with Banner minions were really, really good. But he does have a free dash, which is really nice. I talk about this with Pyke and Rakan, that just being able to jump over a wall just allows you to ward deeper and to just take more risks and to get away from stuff if people are trying to gank you. So he's pretty safe in that regard. And then I think the build that I've been talking about a lot on some of these other champions, people haven't been trying that as much on Shen. There's been some people trying it with Presence of Mind and Tenacity. But that can give you a lot bigger cooldown on this ult and just allow you to zip around the map and make more plays more often. So that can give you a lot of extra map pressure. It's just really good at the Clown Fiesta. And then so a lot of people just go Aftershock, Demolish, Bone Plating, Unflinching, and then some people go for like some other stuff. But I think that Presence of Mind, some people like to do like Hex Flash and Insight or whatever on him. I don't it's okay, but I don't recommend that, especially for kind of novice Shen players. This is very good, though. It's the same deal. People just aren't going to be able to stop you. They aren't going to be able to CC you. You're going to be able to keep auto-attacking, land that extra damage, get those slows on people. So I think that's really nice. A build that I have not seen that I think actually could work. I haven't tested it, but if you want to go for a very aggressive build with Shen, I do think that Hail of Blades is something that's really underexplored on Shen. Because you want to get those hits out as fast as possible because, you know, you do like burst damage whenever you hit your Q, but you have to auto attack 3 times to get it. And so if we go up here and look at this, if you attack really fast with this, you know, that total damage is massive. It's 21% of their total health. In addition, if it's like, you know, an extra 150 damage, or I guess an extra 50 damage because that includes the 3 hits. So you have 50 damage plus 20% of their maximum health. So, you know, if they're sitting at like 600 health, whatever, 650 health, that's basically 200 damage that you're dealing to them off of a Q at like level 5. That's a lot of damage. That doesn't include your autos. Don't forget, that does not include your basic auto attack damage. This is empowered damage. So when you hit with 3 autos, your base attack damage is 60, which is pretty high. So it's probably going to be 365 damage hits. That's 185 damage plus the 200 is like almost 400 damage off of this Q whenever you land your 3 hits. She wants some milk. Is it milk, Rory? But oh no, she wants milk first. She thinks you don't understand her. She's just like yelling milk over and over again. Anyways, I you know, maybe it's too aggressive, maybe it's too cute. I think it could be legit on him though. That's a lot of extra damage that you can throw on people. I mean, if you hit somebody with this taunt early on for 60 damage plus do that combo, that's like 450 or 500 damage. You know, now early on it's not going to be the 21%. It's going to be like 18%. It's still a lot though. Y'all see where I'm coming from. It's like 400, 500 damage whenever you just go in, like Shadow Dash, flash on somebody, get the taunt, do your Q, land your 3 hits on somebody. If you have Halo Blades, it's going to be lightning fast. Just boom, 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 3 hits. And then all of a sudden, you know, you just did 60% of their health, and they're just like, what the hell happened? And then your AD carry hits them a couple of times, you ignite, and they're dead. So I think that could do a startling amount of burst damage with Halo Blades on him. You also have Cheap Shot, which is really good as well on him, because that does true damage whenever you immobilize or slow somebody. So you're going to hit him once, right? Whenever you go in with your Shadow Dash, you hit him, and then Halo Blaze is going to trigger. You're going to hit him 3 more times, and it's going to slow him for 2 seconds, right? So those hitting him 3 times is probably going to take 1 second, probably not 1 second, but like 2 seconds to hit him 3 times. Then this is going to be lasting for another 2 seconds. And so I think, I don't know the exact timing, but I think you would be able to get a second cheap shot in there by the time that they're slowed for that last little bit. Because remember, each auto attack is going to reapply that slow for 2 seconds. So, I mean, that's pretty good. Level 5, that's 36 true damage, which equates, you know, it depends on how many resistances they have, but that's pretty close to something along the lines of like 50 extra damage on there. So, that's pretty good. I mean, that's a lot of damage, and you have Ghost Poro to get the extra AD and AP. And the big thing that I love about this build is you can take Ultimate Hunter and Presence of Mind. So now you're going to have 25% cooldown on your ult once you get the kills and the assists on people. And you're going to get a lot of kills and assists on random people around the map whenever you ult them. You're going to get the kills and the assists. 25% here, you know, off of your items. You know, off of these 3 items, you're going to get another 30%. It's going to be 55% cooldown on your ult. And if you get, you know, 2 or 3 assists, you're going to get an extra, you know, 20 or 30% on your ult. So you're talking about, like, this ult can be up. It's not unreasonable to think this could be up in 30 seconds to a minute, you know, maybe 45 seconds on average. So you're going to zip around the map constantly and just be a total pest and just influence all of these fights. So I think that's, you know, a very good potential 1v9 thing. Now, yes, it does take a bit of charge up, right? You have to get some assists on people with Ulti Hunter, you know, in order to charge it up. But I think it's got a good early game aggression. I think that, and it scales well. I mean, they build more health, no problem. You just end up doing more damage with your Q. So I think he has a lot of potential there. He nerfs a lot of auto attack champions. Like Master Yi, he just takes a dump on Master Yi. If you just stay close to your AD carry and proc this Spirit Refuge on him, the Master Yi can't actually hit your AD carry or anyone that's close to this for 2 seconds. So it's not exactly the same thing as CCing Master Yi, but it's pretty close, because when Master Yi does his Alpha Strike, you know as soon as he finishes, he's going to be auto-attacking. So you have a lot of time to set up that Spirit Refuge, and then you can Shadow Dash taunt him as well. So I think there's a lot of good potential. One thing about him is it is a bit harder to engage, right? Like, you're good at peeling, but you really have to have your flash, or you have to, like, you know, get him out of a bush or something to get the Shadow Dash on him a lot of the time against decent players. So he's better used as like a peeler against other like engaged tanks or other hook engaged champions. So maybe he's okay against something like Rakan or Pyke, Nautilus, things like that. He's probably going to be pretty good. But I think he can put out an alarming amount of damage with his Twilight Assault for a support tank. You know, all of this is base damage. You don't need any items to do this. You can build full tank, still do a lot of damage. He has a lot of shields for himself, so, you know, Aftershock, yes, Aftershock's OP and it's really good, but you do get this key barrier, which helps you out a lot with the trades, and you have the Spirit Refuge, which is going to block all auto attacks on you as well. So I think you're already going to be pretty tanky. Maybe you're too squishy without Aftershock, but I swear, especially if you have something like a Draven, this build, because you get, like, really good late game with Ulti Hunter plus Presence, and extremely good early game with Halo Blaze and Cheap Shot. I mean, I wouldn't mind trying it out in some normals and just seeing. Now, is there probably some problems with this build? Sure, there's probably problems. I'm probably not going to play it, but it's cool to think about. I just wanted to give y'all one spicy pick that I think is going to be more viable. Now, in pro play, I do think we will see Shen, and it's going to be the Aftershock build. But I do think we might see the Aftershock build with unflinching Presence of Mind tenacity. I think that could be a sleeper and really, really strong in pro. I think that could maybe replace Tom Kench in the bot lane. People probably just play a lot more Braum instead, but I think it's something that definitely could be a possibility. His biggest drawback is that he doesn't have, like, awesome items, because most items have some kind of mana on them, and he uses energy, so that's why Banner of Command was so good. But I still think that these items, like Ionian, or you can get a defensive boot like Ninja Tabby or Merc Treads if you need to, and then Equinox and Knight's Vow are really good. That's why in Pro, you don't get more items than this. Usually this is all you get as a tank, right? You get a boot, you get Equinox, you get Vow, and you get like 30 control wards, and that's it, you know, in most Pro games. So not going to be as much of an issue in Pro. But in solo queue, I see most people that are running Shields, Shen support running Redemption as a final item. Although I do think you could run ZZ Rot Portal if you want to, you know, split push a side lane. or you can run Gargoyle Stoneplate in order to just be kind of a team fight menace. And believe it or not, this is actually, it doesn't have a huge amount of representation, I don't think, in Pro, but pros are actually playing this right now. I mean, it's got a 51% win rate. As support, 51% win rate. So it's not like it's completely ridiculous. Some people are definitely experimenting and trying this out. I think especially with the buffs on this patch, it's worth considering. So we might even see him top lane, but I think as support, he would be my breakout, like, no one saw this coming type of support on this patch, if there is one. Once again, am I necessarily saying that's going to happen? Everyone should play Shen? Probably not, but I think that he's going to be a lot better than people think. I think you'll be surprised with Shen. So I think the one that is really going to be the breakout is going to be Lux on this patch. She's going to reemerge, I think. But Shen's definitely a sleeper that's going to come back to life. And that's pretty much it for time. We're at an hour 30. I can't go much longer than that. I really don't like doing, like, these videos scare off so many new viewers, but I did just want to get to Shen and talk about some of these other ones because I know I didn't get to talk about him a lot on the last patch. You know, Nautilus, just for the last roundup here, Nautilus is okay. I just feel like they're better engaged supports right now. He's surprisingly pretty squishy in the early game. You know, his hook can be good, but it can't go over walls. If you miss and accidentally hit a wall and, like, go into a tower or something like that, it's pretty bad. He doesn't put up a lot of pressure early. It's okay. Like, with the E, you can wave clear, but you don't have any poke. I just like Pyke and Rakan a lot more. I think they have a lot more flexibility to them. If you want one of those kind of, like, hook or, like, hard engage type of champs, I think they could be pretty good. Sadie, get out of there. Morgana can be good. She's a decent counter pick to hook champs. Like, she's particularly good against Rakan. But she can be pretty good against Nautilus, Blitz, a lot of those types of champs. I think that she gets outclassed by things like Lux, who has a similar piece of CC on her Q, and just has better scaling overall. But she's okay situationally. I would only pick her as a counter pick, but she's good against some of these hard engaged champs. You know, Thresh and Leona are obviously going to be really good candidates for you to pick Morg, especially with, like, Tom Kench falling even further out of the meta. You know, maybe Morg is going to be a better pick there. Yuumi has just been nerfed so much. I mean, she's permabanned in Pro. I don't think she's that great in solo queue if you're under Diamond. She's okay, but most people just aren't that great on her. You can really just dumpster her early game. She got completely busted up on these patch notes. I mean, it was just brutal. And even the last patch was brutal. They knocked 50 damage off of her Q later in the game. They increased its cooldown by 2.5 seconds in the early game. They decreased the slow. Like, and then, you know, a couple of patches ago, they took away her free mana regen. They nerfed her shield. They just nerfed all kinds of stuff about her. So, I just don't think she's that good for solo queue. She's a really cool champion. I like the design. I like the concept. But, you know, low win rate, which, once again, that's not necessarily always terrible. But she's just really team dependent. You can't really roam unless you're on somebody. It's very difficult to ward unless you're on somebody. You know, you really need your team to follow up. So she can be good, and I think that she will still be pretty good in, like, Challenger up. You'll probably still see her in Pro some, but I think for solo queue, I just wouldn't do it. And then finally, Thresh. If you're a god on Thresh, he's definitely tier 1, but if you're not, I don't think this is a great time to start. I think there are better engaged champions like Rakan and Pyke. I think he has pretty bad matchups into things like Lux, Zyra, Bard. I think there are a lot of champs that he has a hard time with. He doesn't scale very well. Yeah, he does get armor. He does get some AD, but other tanks get armor for free without having to collect those souls. He doesn't have great runes. He kind of takes Aftershock. He's okay. He's a super cool champion that is just, like, really unfortunate right now that there just aren't good runes and items for him. So you just kind of have to be, like, just insanely good on him. I just think he's outclassed by Pyke pretty much in every way if you want someone offensive. And if you want someone that's, like, a lot of versatility, I just think that Rakan's better, but he can be all right. Anyways, that's going to be it. Been talking forever. Hope you enjoyed this. Be sure to like and subscribe if you did. I am going to do more tier lists for different roles. I'll probably release, like, maybe an 80 carry tier list tomorrow. And then I'll see if I can do at least one other one, maybe jungle, maybe top lane. I'll see how many I can do. Be sure to go watch those and, you know, at least drop a view in there so that I know it's worthwhile to do it. It does take a long time to research, record, upload, all of that, these videos. People watch the support video. I know we have a huge support fan base on the channel, but, you know, watch the other stuff too. Even if you don't play it, just to help me know that, like, people might be interested in it, you know, learning more about it. Because, you know, if I drop, like, 2 hours researching, recording, all that stuff on like a top lane video and we get like 100 views, I'm gonna be sad. Okay, so make it worth my time. Be sure to check that stuff out whenever I release it, and that will encourage me to make more content like that as well. But anyways, that's gonna be it. Like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Come by, check out the stream around 9:30. Check out the rest of the stuff on the channel, and I'll see you next time. Have a good day.